Influencers and theme parks are the worst combo. I'm Timothy, and these stories prove it. See how chasing a viral moment turns into a real-life, non-clickbait tragedy. From an influencer who attempted a backflip on a Tagada ride to another who spent weeks planning a forbidden skating stunt and met a devastating end. It was the afternoon of September 19, 2015, at a county fair in Orlando, Florida. The fairgrounds were packed with families, teenagers, and tourists enjoying the weekend. Caspian Moore Dunmore was 21 years old and lived in Orlando. He worked part-time at a sporting goods store and spent much of his free time with friends and posting videos online. He had around 2,300 followers and enjoyed making content showing him trying different activities and challenges at local events. Outside of social media, Caspian was active and athletic. He had played sports growing up and liked testing himself physically. Friends described him as someone who was always willing to try something new and who got more interested in doing something the moment he saw someone else do it first. Earlier that afternoon, Caspian was standing near the Tagada, watching a skilled stunt rider inside the attraction perform a backflip while the ride was in full motion. The crowd reacted immediately. People cheered, pulled out phones, and pointed. The stunt rider looked experienced and landed cleanly without any problems. Caspian watched every detail from outside the barrier. The stunt stayed in his head. He brought it up several times while walking around the fair with his group, and the more he talked about it, the more convinced he became that he could do it too, but they laughed at him. He was young, fit, and confident in his body. The move looked difficult, but not impossible to him. Later that afternoon, Caspian bought a ticket and boarded the Tagada. He did not attempt anything during that first ride. Instead, he sat and paid close attention to how the platform moved beneath everyone. He watched how the bouncing worked, how the direction changed, and how the timing seemed to repeat. By the time the ride stopped, he felt he understood it well enough. He immediately got back in line. He used one ride as a study session, and that was the entire preparation. I genuinely do not know what else to say about that. His friend Nash asked if he was being serious. Caspian said he just wanted to try one thing. When they reached the front, he handed his phone to Nash and asked him to record. Nash assumed it would either work or end in a harmless tumble. Neither of them expected anything worse than that, and I think about Nash in that moment. He handed over the phone and said sure and wasn't prepared for what came next. The ride started. For the first few moments, Caspian stayed seated and watched the platform move beneath the other riders. Then he stood up and moved carefully toward the center of the disc. Nash kept the camera up from behind the safety barrier outside. Caspian waited for what he believed was the right moment to go. He had watched the ride once already. He thought he had figured out the timing. The platform bounced beneath him as he set himself up. The movement was slightly different from what he expected and disrupted his footing before he could adjust. Instead of sitting back down and waiting for a better moment, he decided to go anyway. He launched into the backflip with his balance already off. The takeoff was wrong from the start. As he left the surface, the ride moved again and changed his rotation in the air. He was no longer lined up to land on his feet. He came down at the wrong angle and hit the moving platform hard with the side of his head and shoulder. The impact whipped his neck sideways and his head bounced off the surface a second time before he could go limp. At first, some people watching assumed he had just taken a bad fall. Falls happened on the Tagada all the time, and riders usually laughed it off and sat back down. The operator kept the ride going for a brief moment before it became obvious something was seriously wrong. The ride was stopped. Staff moved into the attraction area and people nearby pressed against the barrier. Nash lowered his phone and ran toward the exit gate. Emergency crews responded immediately and transported Caspian to a nearby hospital. Doctors diagnosed a severe traumatic brain injury, but despite treatment, his condition worsened. Caspian died later that night. The medical examiner ruled his death a fatal traumatic brain injury caused by blunt force head impact during a failed acrobatic attempt on a moving fairground attraction. Investigators reviewed witness statements, ride records, and phone footage, concluding that Caspian had attempted a backflip on the moving platform after watching a trained stunt performer perform the same move earlier that day. Nash recorded the whole thing. He was standing outside that barrier holding the phone his friend handed him. "I don't know how someone can live with that." The video was never posted online. Caspian watched one person do it and decided that was enough information. The next case is about someone who did not watch someone else at all. He spent weeks researching, bought safety equipment, and convinced himself he had thought of everything. It was the evening of August 8, 2016, at a large theme park in San Antonio, Texas. One of the most popular attractions was a giant pendulum ride that swung riders high into the air while rotating at the same time. Leandro Antonio Vance was 29 years old and lived in Phoenix, Arizona. He worked as a freelance video editor and spent much of his free time making videos for social media. He was not a major creator, but had built a loyal audience that enjoyed watching him test unusual ideas and challenge common assumptions. Friends described him as creative and determined. When he got interested in something, he would spend days researching it before acting on it. Sometimes that research helped him create good content. Other times it made him too confident in conclusions that were missing something important. Earlier that summer, Leandro became fascinated by giant pendulum rides and spent weeks watching videos of them from different angles. Some people filmed themselves standing nearby while the rides operated. Others talked about the powerful wind created as the pendulum passed at the bottom of its arc. The videos gave Leandro an idea. He wanted to film himself standing as close as safely possible to one of the rides while it was running. He spent several weeks planning what he believed would be a controlled experiment. He studied layouts, visited parks to observe the rides, and eventually came up with what he thought was a smart safety system. He bought a climbing harness and a heavy-duty bungee cord. His plan was to wear the harness and attach the cord to a solid structure behind him so that if he slipped or lost his balance, the tether would stop him before he could drift too close to the ride. Several friends told him the safety barriers and warning zones around those attractions existed for a reason. Leandro told them he was not planning to enter the ride's path and that the tether would give him an extra layer of protection. He was convinced the setup was sound. On August 8th, he arrived at the park with his camera and equipment. He spent time watching the pendulum ride operate before crossing into a restricted maintenance area not intended for guests and positioning himself closer to the attraction. He attached the bungee cord to a concrete structure behind him, secured the harness around his waist, checked the connection several times, and started recording. And I want to be clear about something. He did not walk in recklessly. He spent weeks on this. That level of preparation is exactly what made him so confident nothing could go wrong. At first, it went exactly as he planned. He spoke to the camera while the ride swung back and forth behind him. Each pass sent a noticeable rush of air across the area, and the closer the pendulum came to the bottom of its arc, the stronger the force felt. He seemed pleased and kept filming as the ride reached full speed and the swings grew larger. At some point, Leandro shifted his position slightly to get a better camera angle, and in doing so, left more slack in the tether than he had started with. The extra cord settled loosely across the ground between him and the ride. He did not notice. As the ride continued operating, the loose section of cord slipped into the clearance zone beneath it. All I can say here is that no content is worth your life. People watch and go. You are stuck with your consequences. On the next pass, a moving part of the ride caught the cord, pulling it tight instantly. The force yanked Leandro off his feet and dragged him across the ground toward the attraction. He had no time to react before he was pulled into the restricted zone and struck a metal support structure. Witnesses saw him lunge forward suddenly and immediately shouted for help. Ride operators activated an emergency shutdown and staff rushed to the area. Paramedics arrived within minutes and transported Leandro to a nearby hospital. He had suffered severe blunt force traumatic injuries from being dragged into the ride structure. Despite emergency treatment, he died later that evening. The medical examiner ruled his death the result of fatal blunt force traumatic injuries. Investigators found no mechanical failure and concluded that Leandro's homemade tether became entangled with the moving ride, causing the incident. His video recording ended during the event and was collected as evidence. Leandro built what he believed was a safety system, and it became the exact thing that pulled him in. Chandler's case is different. He planned his for 3 weeks, practiced for it, and smuggled skates past security to make it happen. It was June 18th, 2018, at a crowded theme park in Anaheim, California. Thousands of visitors filled the park that day. Families waited in long lines, children ran between attractions, and employees moved through the crowds helping guests. Chandler James Remington was 22 years old and lived in Charlotte, North Carolina. He worked part-time at a sporting goods store and spent most of his free time roller skating and posting videos online. He had built a small, loyal following of around 4,000 people who enjoyed watching him skate in unusual places where people normally did not skate. Most of his videos got a few hundred views, and some reached a few thousand, but none had ever broken through to a wider audience. Chandler did not mind. He enjoyed making them and was always looking for a bigger idea that would finally get people talking. During spring 2018, he became focused on creating something that would stand out more than anything he had posted before. He visited the theme park with friends and noticed several decorative metal rails near one of the main walkways. The rails looked smooth, and he immediately started thinking about what he could do with them. Over the following 3 weeks, Chandler planned a video around one of those rails. The idea was to secretly bring roller skates into the park, jump onto the rail, and grind across its full length while his friends filmed from different angles. He practiced similar tricks at local skate parks throughout the weeks leading up to the trip, and by the time he arrived, he felt confident he could pull it off cleanly. To get the skates past security, he hid them in his backpack. Once inside the park, he went into a restroom and changed into them before meeting his friends near the target rail. I think about the effort that went into all of this, and what comes next is something that I find hard to sit with. From a distance, the rail had looked straight forward. Up close, it was a decorative handrail running beside one of the main walkways. It had not been built for skating. Underneath the rail were several metal support brackets spaced along its length, and at the far end, the rail curved toward a steel barrier protecting a maintenance access area. Chandler had noticed both details during his earlier visits and had believed the brackets would not interfere and that there would be enough space to exit the grind before reaching the curve. He had made that judgment while standing still looking at it from the side. He had not accounted for how fast everything would look once he was moving. Shortly after lunch, he spotted a brief gap in foot traffic and decided it was time. He pushed off and built speed before any nearby employees could register what was happening. He jumped and locked onto the rail. The first section went perfectly. He held his balance and moved smoothly across the metal surface. His friends cheered from the side while filming. Nearby guests stopped walking and turned to watch. Then he reached the final section. At skating speed, the curve arrived much faster than he had expected. The rail was shorter than it had looked from the walkway. He realized almost immediately that he had less room to exit than he had planned for, and shifted his weight to jump clear of the rail before the curve. As he moved, the frame of one skate caught a metal support bracket underneath the rail. The contact stopped part of his momentum instantly and threw him forward out of the grind. He had no way to recover. He went headfirst into the steel maintenance barrier beside the pathway. The collision knocked him unconscious immediately, and his body dropped straight down onto the concrete below his head, hitting the surface a second time with the full weight of the fall behind it. He did not move after landing. Nearby guests ran toward him immediately while others called for help. His friends dropped their phones and rushed over. Park employees arrived quickly and called for emergency medical assistance. Paramedics reached the scene within minutes and began treatment at the scene before transporting Chandler to a nearby hospital. Doctors found multiple skull and facial fractures along with a severe traumatic brain injury caused by the impacts with both the steel barrier and the concrete. Emergency surgery was performed, but his condition continued to worsen. Chandler died on June 20, 2018, from complications of the brain injury. The medical examiner ruled his death a fatal traumatic brain injury caused by successive head impacts against a steel barrier and concrete. Investigators reviewed security footage, witness videos, and guest statements, concluding that Chandler lost control while attempting to exit the rail near its curved end after misjudging his speed and available space. He misjudged the speed. I keep coming back to that gap between what something looks like and what it actually is when you are moving through it. The video his friends recorded was never uploaded. Chandler planned for 3 weeks, and the gap between what he expected and what actually happened was less than a second. Travis's case is the one in this video I find most difficult to explain, because the plan itself makes almost no sense from the start. It was August 12, 2017, at a large theme park in Sandusky, Ohio. The park was packed with families and tourists enjoying the summer weather. One of the most popular attractions was a roller coaster known for its speed, steep drops, and powerful turns. Travis Trevino was 24 years old and lived in Miami, Florida. He worked at a car rental company and spent his free time making videos for social media. He had built a loyal following that enjoyed his unusual challenges and adventures. Most of his videos got a few thousand views, but his followers liked that he always tried things other people would not bother attempting. Outside of work, he was constantly thinking up strange ideas that would make people laugh or leave them wondering why anyone would even try. His friends knew him as the person who always suggested something nobody else would. During the summer of 2017, Travis and several friends planned a weekend trip to Orlando and spent a day at the theme park. For weeks before the trip, they talked about which rides they wanted to try. Travis quickly became focused on one goal. He wanted to do something on a roller coaster that nobody had ever attempted before. His ideas started off harmless enough. He talked about solving a puzzle during the ride or trying to write his name while the coaster was moving. Then a few days before the trip, he settled on something different. He wanted to eat an entire 10-piece box of chicken nuggets while riding the coaster. The challenge made no sense, which was exactly why he liked it. He could not find a single person online who had tried it. His friends immediately told him it was a stupid idea. He told them that people rode roller coasters every day and that eating a full meal on one was something different entirely. And honestly, I understand the appeal of that logic. Nobody has done it. It sounds ridiculous. Those are usually the videos that pop off. I just do not think he thought through what a roller coaster actually does to your body while it is moving. On the morning of August 12th, the group arrived at the park and spent hours working through different attractions. The closer they got to the coaster, the more determined Travis became. Shortly before joining the line, he bought a 10-piece box of nuggets from a nearby restaurant and hid them under his jacket so ride operators would not spot them. His friends kept telling him not to do it. He ignored every one of them. Imagine being warned by everyone not to endanger your life. Well, it might not make sense to some, but what comes next changes everything. When they boarded the train, Travis sat next to a friend, and another friend agreed to record the attempt on a phone. As the train left the station, he pulled out the box and opened it. The first section of the ride went exactly as he expected. He laughed and held up the nuggets while the train climbed the first hill. The wind picked up and people around him were already screaming as the coaster built speed. Travis started eating. It was harder than he expected. The coaster was moving fast, and every turn threw his body in a different direction, making it difficult to hold the box and eat at the same time. He managed to keep going through the first drops and turns, but the forces pressing against his body with each change in direction made swallowing nearly impossible to control. On a steep section of the ride, the coaster accelerated hard, and Travis attempted to swallow a piece of food at the same moment the train hit a sharp turn. The sudden G-force pushed everything in his body in the wrong direction. The food lodged in his airway instead of going down. He had no way to cough it free. The speed of the ride, the noise around him, and the restraint holding him in the seat meant he could not move properly to help himself. His hands went to his throat, but there was nothing he could do from inside the moving train. His friends noticed he had gone quiet. The coaster was loud and the wind was strong, and everyone was being thrown around, so nobody picked up on it immediately. They called his name a few times during the final section of the ride, but could not tell if he was answering over the noise. It was only as the train pulled back into the unloading station that they realized something was wrong. Travis was slumped in his seat and not responding. Paramedics arrived within minutes and transported Travis to a nearby hospital. Although doctors were able to remove the obstruction and continue treatment, Travis had suffered severe oxygen deprivation before help could reach him. He remained in critical condition but never regained consciousness and died the following day. The medical examiner determined that he died from asphyxiation caused by a food blockage in his airway. Investigators reviewed witness statements, ride records, and the phone video, concluding that eating during the high-speed ride contributed to the fatal choking incident. His friends were sitting right next to him, calling his name over the noise. They thought he was just quiet. I think about that final section of the ride and what those few seconds must have felt like for them when the train pulled back into the station. The video was never uploaded. Travis had wanted to attempt something unusual on a roller coaster. It was the last thing he ever did. Travis brought food onto a ride to prove a point to his audience. The last case I'm covering today is completely different because this woman spent months building something with her own hands and jumped off a 20-foot structure in front of her sister. It was the afternoon of May 22, 2019, at a large theme park in Orlando, Florida. Long lines stretched outside popular attractions. Employees moved through the crowds, helping guests, and music played throughout the themed areas. Gertrude Adira was 31 years old and lived in Jacksonville, Florida. She worked as a chef at a local restaurant and made videos in her spare time focused on food, travel, and places she visited on her days off. Over time, she had built a loyal following of around 6,900 people. She was not widely famous, but her followers liked her personality and interacted with her posts regularly. A few months before the trip, she noticed that videos filmed from unusual locations got more attention than her normal uploads. She began looking for places that looked dramatic on camera, even when the actual situation was far less exciting than it appeared. Around that time, Gertrude decided she wanted to create a fantasy-themed video unlike anything she had posted before. After watching costume creators online, she built a large set of decorative wings from lightweight craft materials. The wings were made for appearance only, attached to a harness worn across her shoulders, and looked impressive in photos and videos. While testing them at home, she jumped from short walls and benches a few feet off the ground while wearing them. She always landed fine. Because nothing bad ever happened, she slowly started convincing herself that the wings made her jumps feel slightly safer and slowed her descent a little, even though they were decorative props with no ability to carry weight or create any lift at all. And that progression is something I find genuinely unsettling. Every safe landing from a few feet up became evidence to her that the wings were doing something until what happened next. On May 22nd, Gertrude visited the theme park with her younger sister. They planned to spend the day filming content and enjoying the attractions. During the afternoon, Gertrude noticed a decorative rock formation inside one of the themed sections of the park. The structure looked natural, but had been built as scenery and was not designed for climbing. Parts of the area had barriers and signs telling guests to stay out. From where she stood, Gertrude decided the formation was the perfect background for the video she had been planning. The higher position would make the wings stand out against the sky and create the impression she was about to glide. She climbed up anyway. Her sister stayed below with a camera while Gertrude made her way up through the decorative structure. Several guests nearby noticed what she was doing. A park employee spotted her and began moving toward the area. Gertrude jumped before anyone could reach her. The plan was to spread the wings as she dropped and create footage that would look impressive on camera. She had jumped in the wings before from a few feet up and walked away fine every time. She believed the same thing would happen now. It did not. There's something that still baffles me. What exactly was going on in her mind when she took that jump? The moment she left the rock formation, it became clear the wings were doing nothing. There was no slowing down and she was not gliding. She fell roughly 20 feet before hitting the ground. The impact drove her left side and shoulder into the concrete path below the formation. She did not move after that. Her sister dropped the camera and ran toward her immediately. Guests nearby rushed over and called for help. Her sister was standing right there, holding the camera. She filmed the whole thing. I don't know how you process being the person holding that footage. Park employees secured the area and directed first responders to the scene. Paramedics arrived within minutes and began treating Gertrude before transporting her to a nearby hospital. Doctors found severe blunt force traumatic injuries from the fall. Despite emergency treatment and continued efforts by medical staff, her condition could not be stabilized. Gertrude Adira died later that day. The medical examiner recorded her cause of death as fatal blunt force traumatic injuries consistent with a fall from a height of approximately 20 feet onto a hard surface. Investigators reviewed witness statements, security footage, and the video recorded by her sister. They found no structural failure or park malfunction. What began as a Leandro for views ended in the most horrible way.